Hello everybody, hope you guys are doing great. Today we're going to be looking at potentially very active Pacific basin here where we actually have three current areas where the National Hurricane Center is looking into for some potential tropical activity to develop within the next 5 days or so. And anyone in these orange areas, that's where they have over a 40% chance of developing within the next 5 days. And most of these actually have a 60% chance of developing within the next 5 days. And I believe that will go up within, as we get closer to these potentially forming here. We're also going to look at potentially another system in the Atlantic that's currently off the shore of New England, and that's actually going to be making its way further east and north. But we'll have to see if that can actually develop into some sort of tropical storm. The models, about 50% of them show a tropical storm developing. The rest of them really show it as a high-end tropical depression. Either way, it'll really be off to sea by that point, but it'll just be interesting to see if we can get our fourth named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. And of course, with these, we could actually get in the Pacific our fourth named storm if all of these develop. Now, here is currently your National Weather Service page, and we do see we have some heat advisories over parts of California and Oregon, as well as southern Texas and southern New Mexico. We have some dense fog advisories for parts of western New Mexico, and then we also have some red flag warnings for fire weather danger over parts of southwestern Colorado. Other than that, it is quite quiet over for the watches and warnings for the United States. Now, here's your current Atlantic 5-day graphical outlook from the National Hurricane Center, and they actually have a 20% chance within the next 48 hours of this system developing, and a 20% chance within the next 5 days of this system developing. And again, this is off the shore of the northeast coast. Now, here's what that looks like on the satellite, and you actually see we have a fairly wrapped up low pressure system that's offshore of the northeast coast, and we'll have to see the water temperatures that are currently over this area in parts of the northeast. These are current water sea surface temperatures, and we actually have sea surface temperatures of about 55 to about 65 degrees. So still fairly cold, and even as you get closer to Nova Scotia and Maine, we have those water temperatures of around 45 to 55. So this is some very, very cold waters for the system, and usually you want above 80 degrees or 26 degrees Celsius for these systems to develop, and currently we have only about 18 to about 12 to about 18 degrees Celsius temperatures, and that would be again between 45 and about 60 or 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is a fairly low temperatures, especially over parts of the northeast coast. So we'll have to wait for these temperatures to really heat up for any sort of chance of this really developing. Right now, I don't think this is going to really develop. It is still not out of the question, but I really don't think it is too likely that this develops. Now, let's actually look at your Eastern Pacific there, and we actually have these three areas of interest. We have your first one furthest to the east. We have a 60% chance within the next 5 days, 0% chance within the next 48 hours, 50% chance within the next 48 hours, and 60% chance within the next 5 days for this one in the middle here. And then we have over further to the west, we have a 40% chance within the next 48 hours and a 60% chance within the next 5 days. Now, here's currently what that satellite loop looks like for parts of the Eastern Pacific there, and we actually do see that we do have some convective activity over parts of the Eastern Pacific. Really, just some thunderstorms that are popping up there over parts of the Eastern Pacific, and that's gonna help fuel these tropical storms that potentially could develop here. Now, let's actually look here at your Central Pacific and what it's showing right now, and we have no tropical cyclones throughout the Eastern Pacific right now, or the Central Pacific, and this is really just the area around Hawaii, and it has been very, very quiet over this area, and we'll have to see if this will actually continue to be quiet, or if it will actually start to ramp up in terms of how much tropical activity we see in this area. So here is where that low pressure system is currently, where they found it, and they found it again pretty much just east of about New Jersey there, and if you go about a couple hundred miles eastward from there, that's where you actually have your low pressure system. Now, here is your track of this system, and we have most of them in line going just south of Nova Scotia there and Newfoundland and Labrador, and that's going to be making its way north and east from there, and it should be moving fairly off to shore and won't really be making too many impacts with land as of what we see right now. Now, here is your model intensity guidance and what these models are actually showing for this, and they're actually showing most of them, or half of them actually, showing tropical storm. So this is about 3 out of the 7 models showing a tropical storm, and then you have about 4 out of the 7 models showing a high-end tropical depression, even a mid tropical depression. So not too strong of a system, and again, it's mainly because of those sea surface temperatures that are very, very cold that it's really not going to be able to develop, especially this early in the hurricane season. Now, here is your sea surface temperatures around the eastern Pacific, and you see we have some very, very warm sea surface temperatures, and all the way throughout where you're going to be seeing these develop, we have sea surface temperatures at least of 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius, and we actually have some readings of about even 85 degrees Fahrenheit or even closer to 87 or 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's actually going to really help these storms really get going here. Now, here is currently where the one furthest, where the central area of interest here is this one right here. This is where they currently found it here, and they found it just offshore of Mexico by about 100 or so miles southwest of there, even a little bit more than that. And it's currently right over the ocean there. Now, here is your model guidance, and again, this is going to be mainly offshore, so it's not going to really be impacting land, but it will serve as some of your named storms for this Pacific hurricane season, and it's really going to help this Pacific hurricane season get going. Now, here's your intensity guidance from this, and we do see that we have one model bringing this as a tropical storm, the rest of them keeping it as a high-end tropical depression. So this one really isn't the strongest storm, and we'll have to see if more of these models trend further closer to tropical storm, or if they start to kind of lower their expectations for this storm. Now, here is what this is something I want to show you here. Actually, this is your Saharan dust layer, and this is kind of a very, very important aspect in terms of whether you'll actually see some of these systems develop. And this is actually showing you why the Atlantic currently you haven't seen any real storms except for the one over offshore to the northeast. Except for that, where you don't have too much dust. Over pretty much everywhere from the Gulf of Mexico eastward, you haven't seen too much tropical activity, and that's usually your most active area. And that's all because of the Saharan dust, which you can actually see if we looked on the satellite right now. This is what the Saharan dust looks like, and that brown layer right there, that's your Saharan dust, and that's overtaking parts of the parts of the Caribbean, and also for your main development region over parts just east of the Caribbean all the way until you go to Africa. That's where most of your systems develop, and because of the Saharan dust, it's really slowing down the hurricane season. But once this goes away, I think it'll really fire up back again. Now, what one of these models actually show. This is a prediction for the Saharan dust and where it's going to move. Now, those pinks, those purples, and those yellows, and even whites are showing where that Saharan dust is, and the more vibrant the colors are, that's really indicating where you have more Saharan dust. Right now, you have a very large quantity over parts of the Eastern Caribbean, and these actually make your sunsets and look much better, and that'll actually look good for some pictures if you want to take some pictures of the sunset. Saharan dust is known to make those pictures or the night sky actually look much better. So that is definitely something if you are into taking pictures, definitely be mindful of that. Now, this would be by the 23rd, so tomorrow, and then as we get to the 24th and the 25th, starting to come onto land over parts of the United States, especially the Gulf region, so parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, through Mississippi, Alabama, and then into Florida and Georgia. There is where you will have them by about the 26th of June, and then as we get to the 27th, that's where you're starting to see some really vibrant colors over parts of eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. That's where you have the largest quantity of the Saharan dust, and then that's going to move further to the north and it's going to start to really impact much of the eastern United States with that Saharan dust. But then you start to see it kind of clears out, and then you'll start to see more tropical activity resume most likely. Now, Here is your potential or your percent chance of seeing a tropical depression form, which takes about 20 knots of wind, which is about 30 or 30 or so miles per hour, and we actually have quite a high chance. Now you can actually see those three different regions. This is your region furthest to the west here. So these are all different distinct storms right here, and you actually can see the fourth storm that we potentially could see develop, and that would come after these three develop, and we have about a 65 to about 85% chance of developing within the furthest west one. The one in the center right there has about a 50 to about 60% chance of development, even a little bit higher, maybe even 70% chance. And then the furthest one to the east, closest to Mexico, has about a 70 to about 80% chance of development. So not a terribly low chance of development, in fact, quite a high chance. And we actually see a couple more waves start to move through Central America and into Mexico and offshore of Mexico, and that could potentially be our fifth or sixth named storm for the Eastern Pacific. So we'll have to see about that, but that is quite a ways out. Now, here's your chance of seeing a tropical storm develop, and this is a considerably lower chance here. We have about a 40 to about 60% chance within this furthest west one. The one in the center right here has about a 30 to about 45% chance of that happening, becoming a tropical storm, and then the one furthest to the east has a very, very low chance of about less than about 10 or 5% chance there. So a fairly decent chance of this developing over the next couple of days. At least one or two of these systems developing, if not a couple more. And we'll have to see about that. This hurricane season really does look to ramp up, especially in the Eastern Pacific and also the Atlantic as we continue to head through time. And it'll be interesting to see if we can actually get our first system to impact parts of Hawaii and the Central Pacific. That'll definitely be something very interesting to see. Anyways, guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.